When selecting candidates for interstellar colonization, there's a lot to consider. A planet without the right atmosphere or protection from cosmic radiation is a non-starter. But then one also has to consider the requirements of basic life, such as food, water, shelter, and a reasonable temperature. So when one looks at a planet such as Tau Ceti IV, it's logical to see a world full of potential. It's got the right atmosphere, and reasonable stellar protection from everything from asteroids to random radiation storms. In celestial terms, it's also a relatively close neighbor to us. Not so far in the grand scheme of things, even if it did take the Marathon 300 years to traverse the distance. But depending on who you ask, of course, there are other things to be considered when choosing a planet to colonize. Beyond necessities for human existence, there are the opportunities that a planet's colonization might present. For the UESC, Tau Ceti IV was more than just an ideal colonial candidate for its amenable environment and well-protected shores. It was also a beacon of potential resources, or phenomena that might be exploited and studied. Records recovered from UESC survey drones imply that Tau Ceti IV was known to contain something that UESC physicists simply referred to as redacted. Whatever this redacted thing was, the degree of secrecy surrounding it was extreme. All mentions of it and discussions of it had to be submitted to a Mission Special Projects Committee before they could commence. And all of this happened, quite notably, well before the Marathon mission itself would launch. The UESC has therefore known for quite some time that there is something on Tau Ceti, something of great interest or value. There are also a few meta hints that can be seen if you look deeper into the past of the original Marathon trilogy. For example, if you use the original Forge, Marathon's map editor, you can open the third level of Marathon, Never Burn Money, and there you can see that someone has scrawled a message outside the bounds of the map. The message reads, "Yaro were at Tau Ceti." All that seems to raise a critical question, namely, why? The exact confirmation of what this redacted thing is still eludes us, but one might speculate that it is connected to the enigmatic Yaro. And if we're to look into why the Yaro traveled to Earth in the distant past of the late 20th century, I think we can all guess what it was that brought them to Tau Ceti, and what that mysterious redacted something on Tau Ceti might be. And then there's the darkest possibility of all. What if this buried thing, this redacted article, was so dangerous or powerful that it was the cause for the collapse of the entire colony of New Cascadia? To put it simply, there is no evidence that points to a concrete idea of what this redacted thing might be. But there is absolutely evidence that there is something inside the planet of Tau Ceti IV. What follows is not an investigation into what that thing might be. The answers to that question are inconclusive. No. This is an investigation into what happened when the colonists of New Cascadia made the foolish error of waking it up. If you're dragging a whole moon and 30,000 people across the stars to reach a colonial site, you'll want to bring the materials to understand that colonial site as well. For the UESC Marathon, these tools came in a variety of forms, including orbital reconnaissance satellites and, crucially, survey drones. It's these satellites and drones that provide us with our first insights into the planet's chaotic nature and whatever might lurk below its surface. On first observation, the satellites detected that most things on Tau Ceti were fairly positive, as had been interpreted by the initial studies of the planet from afar. But there was something odd that couldn't be explained. Tycho, the Marathon's science and communications AI, discovered something odd. The debris disk of the Tau Ceti system was not colliding with Tau Ceti IV. It was almost like there was an exclusion zone around the planet, or as if the debris was deliberately avoiding the planet itself. Of course, this was beneficial to colonization, as there were fewer impacts from celestial objects, and they were smaller. But an explanation for why such a celestial exclusion zone existed was never truly discovered, at least to the best of our knowledge. It was almost like Tau Ceti IV was being avoided by its celestial neighbors, or as if something deep within it was repelling the debris, like a pair of matching charges for magnets. On its own, this was a positive feature, but it hints at the idea that there was something wrong, something going on beneath Tau Ceti IV's surface, and that was expanded upon by yet more of the survey drones and the workers that maintained them, and the things that they found. In particular, a senior drone technician known as Christopheros would make a series of notes about modifications he'd made to the drones that allowed them to function on Tau Ceti IV. His findings are disturbing. First of all, he noted that all drones, regardless of their make and model, seemed to be unable to scan below the surface of the planet. Scans via TOI Exomatrix A9 drones using KIDAR, a quantum scanning and information technology, returned nothing and simply resulted in errors. This meant that A9 survey drones using KIDAR sensors had to have these pulled and replaced with lower-tech LiDAR systems. Secondly, subterranean TOI Exomatrix S4 drones that were designed to go below ground weren't getting any results either. The S4 series drones all failed, in spectacular, terrifying fashion, spontaneously detonating when entering dark and narrow tunnels and shafts that led deeper into the planet. This should perhaps have been a warning of sorts, but of course, this only meant that survey teams had to send in human workers to do surveys manually with non-networked tools. Christopheros's notes regarding preparation for human survey work simply read, "Wear earplugs, take anti-hallucinogens, and don't mind the lingering whispers. Bobs say they're not real, and all credible sensor data agrees." This is not the first time we'll see evidence of strange voices and whispers throughout the colony. In fact, the more and more you look into the strange voices surrounding Tau Ceti and the world, the more common they seem to get. And for those wishing to see evidence of it all firsthand, one only needs to visit the Diamarsh and stray too close to the fissures in the ground that now spill up with kaleidoscopic light. Needless to say, this should have been enough of a red flag all on its own, but there were even more strange happenings. For example, underwater survey drones, which were sent in subpar numbers on the mission by Traxxas who underestimated their need, would go to investigate those shallow seas and oceans of Tau Ceti, and came back having been attacked on their dives. These survey drones weren't even capable of exploring the deeper reaches of the ocean, but still something living beneath the waves of Tau Ceti IV was mistaking the drones for prey animals. They would often return with almond-shaped sucker marks all over their hull. Covering the drones in deterrents like spikes and strange lighting seemed to scare away these animals. But still, the hostility of the world was clear from the outset. And just like on Earth, venturing into a deep ocean of any kind seems to be a foolish idea. All these results pointed to a planet that was hostile to invasion, but also to one that seemed completely irregular for a few inexplicable reasons. Instead of creating a degree of caution amongst the colonists, these new findings only spurred curiosity. It's at this point that I will remind you that the UESC already knew that there was something present on Tau Ceti IV. Now granted, it's unknown if the survey drones and their findings were actually related to what the UESC physicists had all assessed as being present. But if it is, everything that follows from this point onward is partially the UESC's fault. It means that they knew at least a little about the potential for risk as they delved deeper into the planet. They tried to steal the secrets of Tau Ceti IV. And of course, they didn't stop to think that some secrets are buried for a reason. Years after the establishment of New Cascadia, and probably after the IV attack on the UESC Marathon, life would struggle onward on the colony of New Cascadia. Eventually, the colony would reach a point at which it would need to begin to expand. In some ways, this can be seen as the beginning of the end. The initial expansion site is actually well known to all runners who have frequently visited the surface of Tau Ceti. It's better known to us as Perimeter. Work crews attending the site initially were terraplatforming specialists. They believed they were going to be making one of the first expansions to New Cascadia, and the human presence on Tau Ceti at large. But the work suddenly began to shift one day. Crews were taken in for additional security checks, and some crews were reassigned as a result of failing to pass. Furthermore, new leaders and work staff were dropped in to work on the objective for Perimeter, a new objective. Information around what would happen next was strictly controlled, but there was someone there who was able to witness and document some of it firsthand. His name was Isaac Kuzmin, and he saw how a new work chief was brought in. However, this chief didn't specialize in terraplatforming at all. Instead, he was a specialist in security, both of the physical and informational type. He also saw theoretical scientists starting to appear within the work staff of the Perimeter crews, which should have been the first hint that something strange was going to happen. Their objective had shifted somewhat. Instead of initial colony expansions, they instead were moving to install a data wall running across the whole of the Perimeter site. At first, this didn't seem like a particularly strange request. The terraplatforming team had done this numerous times on Tau Ceti's surface. However, something was different this time. When the hauler was linked up to the data wall and initial scans were taken, the amount of raw data coming back from beneath the planet was utterly staggering. There was, in fact, far too much data, and the hauler had to be emergency dead-switched into blackout mode. To handle the inexplicably large amount of data being sent from whatever was beneath the surface of Tau Ceti via the data wall, the team had to begin construction of a pair of massive relay stations. These would send the data up and have it analyzed. The north relay would be completed first, and the south relay was only partway through construction before the next stage of the data wall's activities would begin. To this day, even though it was technically operable, the south relay facility remains partially incomplete. When the first of the relays was activated, it still wasn't enough to handle the massive flow of data. At this point, Isaac Kuzmin was starting to get nervous. Apparently, the colony's leadership was scared as well, and they wanted to understand what was beneath their feet. Perhaps they should have contemplated whether they could understand it at all in the first place. When both the north and south relays were activated and data began to flow from the data wall, everything seemingly started to go wrong. What happened next is unclear, and maybe it is something that relies more on perspectives than grand, shattering events. But something changed. Things became strange in the colony. Things were so troubling that Isaac Kuzmin began to experience a breakdown of sorts. His collection of logs recorded during the event, and everything that happened there afterwards, represent a curious entry of data. Isaac tells us that the colonists and colony leadership should have known that something was wrong from the data on the planet, because it was simply too different to any other planet they knew of. He goes on to state that they built the relays and tried to steal impossible data from a world that they thought was conquered by humanity. Of course, it wasn't. Whatever was represented by the readings was not natural, according to Isaac. He expanded on this by saying that it defied conventional human understandings of the universe, more than just an error in physics, but entirely new physics that humanity was not equipped to comprehend. Isaac's concluding thoughts from this, as he begins to sink further and further into madness, state that it's everything we pretended wouldn't bite us in the ass. It's the unknown. It's the alien. It's the universe saying, "You're too small and too stupid to be here." It's this planet telling us to go home. And we built towers to steal the unknown from a planet we thought we owned. And we sent that data to the stars because we thought... I guess we thought we could understand it. Control it. It was a resource to mine and manipulate, not a warning. Now the dreams won't stop. And I can still hear Rilla screaming in the static of the signal stacks. Whatever was disturbed at the heart of Tau Ceti IV was unleashed back then thanks to the negligence of the colonists and potentially the greed of the UESC. The phenomena that defied all explanations and broke the laws of physics known by humanity was given a broader name to contextualize it. They called it the anomaly. They should have known to call it the end. The chronology of the exact events and timeline of what happened on Tau Ceti IV as it unraveled is unclear and subject to much interpretation. But it seems like the decline of the colony at large either started after or coincided with the data wall's placement and final activation. Isaac Kuzmin noted that he began experiencing nightmares and waking dreams after the data wall was activated. But this was just one of the horrors that the people of New Cascadia would face. The many calamities that would befall Tau Ceti were more than merely the calling cards of the Four Horsemen. War had already visited Tau Ceti's shores in 2794 with the Four attack on the Marathon, but following this nightmare, others swiftly joined the fray. The colony was beset by plague, famine, death, nightmares, rampancy, and madness. Each of these factors that contributed to the colonial collapse are worth investigating on their own, but in many of these circumstances, it seems like the planet was consciously fighting back against the colonists and specifically targeting humanity. The colonists themselves even say as much in their records. In particular, as she searched to discover the origins of the contagion that spread through the colony, Dr. Clarissa Song would make one final recording where she named the contagion and claimed that it had been made specifically to destroy humanity.
This is Dr. Song, dying far from home. I did it. I saw you, named you, dragged you into the light. Telomyces mosaica. That's a fitting name for an endlessly mutating killer. And you're part of something bigger than yourself, aren't you? You waited in the soil for us to sow our seeds, the ones we brought with us. You infected our crops, and then you infected our people. And this planet, something here protected you from us. The way our AI should have protected us from you. It corrupted Darius. Sabotaged our every attempt to understand what was happening or how to stop it. You know, you can colonize my blood, and liquefy my bones, but I figured you out. Still not sure what's helping you. What made you into a weapon? Guess I'll never know. I do know I got off easy. I get to grow here. part of this world that I never understood. I get to dream. What awaits the others is an ancient nightmare. Cold, lonely, and endless, perishing cycle.
The emergence of this contagion was also confirmed by the new caloric AI liaison known as Gaius to be somehow linked to the appearance of another mystery on the surface of Tau Ceti, the anomaly on Diamarsh. Whether this is related to the anomaly scanned in the data wall is unknown, but considering that both seem to emanate from beneath the surface of the planet, it seems more than likely. As for the anomaly itself, it seems like it somehow distorts time and gravity. Anomalous material recovered from the artifact also defied all testing that it was subjected to, with tests always yielding a different failed result every time they occurred. Given that the anomaly bursts forth from the ground and seems to suspend anything and anyone caught in it, this may well be a manifestation of the impossible new physics that Isaac Kuzmin cited from the data wall's discovery. The most frustrating thing of all is that it is technically impossible to know definitively what this thing beneath Tau Ceti actually was. Whilst we know that there was something down there, incomplete colonial records and the enigmatic nature of whatever it is leave us guessing at what might be beneath the feet of our runners. But there is one tangent of theory that is worth following. Incorrect as such an assertion might be, I think it is worth knowing. Please understand that what follows is a speculative cognito hazard. Knowing it does not make it true, but it may change your perception. If we go back to the beginning of our investigation, I highlighted a message from the original Marathon trilogy, and Never Burn Money. A message that stated that the Yaro were at Tau Ceti. There are to this day only 2 references to the Yaro having visited worlds within the speculative lore of Marathon. These may be events in a different timeline, and one of them is certainly in the distant past, but regardless it tells us of the behaviors of the Yaro. In particular, the worlds they visited were Earth in the late 20th century, and the world of Lo-Wan, the homeworld of the Svit, millennia ago. In the case of 20th century Earth, the Yaro visited the planet in order to imprison a being of nightmares and terror that was beginning to emerge from a pyramid beneath the Yucatan Peninsula. In the case of Lo-Wan, they were fleeing from an ancient foe, which they eventually imprisoned by casting it into the star at the heart of the system. According to Svit legends, the foe was a woken Kakinter, a primordial being of chaos whose very presence created ruin across the stars, and which may also have been the catalyst for creation itself. Chaos manifest, unbound by laws and time. The Yaro were previously able to contain the being at Lo-Wan, only managing to do so by imprisoning it within the intense gravity of a star, where it slumbered on for eons untold. So perhaps it is worth pondering if the Yaro were on Tau Ceti because they were doing something similar. It might go some way to explain the chaos and impossible new physics that Isaac Kuzmin saw as the colony began to devolve. It might go some way to explaining the entire collapse of New Cascadia. It might even go some way to explaining the presence of the anomaly itself. The suggestion is simple. What if there is a woken Kakinter beneath the surface of Tau Ceti, asleep and imprisoned by its gravity? And what if by scanning it and attempting to exploit it like a resource, the colonists of New Cascadia and the UESC that led them roused a slumbering giant? It's unproven and unverifiable at this time, but such a strange explanation is one of the few that helps us comprehend what might have happened on Tau Ceti IV. It is one of the few events that fits. Of course, it could be an as-of-yet undiscovered phenomenon, Yaro technology designed to repel us from the planet and whatever lies at its heart, or something else entirely. Until we unearth more secrets from the anomaly and receive new instructions from the factions vying for our attention, we will be left with the ominous knowledge that whatever it is or isn't, there is something beneath the surface of Tau Ceti IV. And it is a thing of nightmares. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead and remember to leave a like down below. And if you have your own thoughts, the comment section is there for you as well. In particular, this time around I want to know if there are other games that you want me to cover. As I continue to expand into being a storyteller generally, I want to know if there are other IPs that you are particularly interested in. Of course, let me know what's going on down below. But as per usual, my name is Bife. I'll see you Starside.